My biggest contract mistake was twofold. First, not being clear on my terms and conditions in my own mind. And second, not enforcing them fairly when they were clear. Ever worry about making mistakes in your coaching business? Or maybe you're terrified you'll get something wrong. First off, don't panic. Everyone makes mistakes. Second, you are in the right place. Welcome to the Coach Pony Podcast, Season 3. This season is all about mistakes that coaches make when building their businesses. From contracts to relationships to websites to events, we'll cover it all to save you time and stress. And most of all, to remind you that mistakes are normal. So with that, let's get down to business. Welcome to this episode, which is all about contracts, because contracts are a little bit scary and there are a lot of mistakes that you can make with them. So with me today to discuss contracts from a variety of perspectives and niches is the amazing Bobby Palmer from datelikeagrownup.com. Hello, Bobby.
So happy to be here and talk to you as always.
Yeah, so I really want to get into it because I know as a new coach, if you're a new coach especially, or if you're a coach who's trying to grow your business or go into a different area or offer, the contract portion and the terms and conditions can be something that might feel a little overwhelming. So I want to dive into some things to think about. So are you ready, Bobby?
I'm ready. Tell us, what was your biggest mistake when it comes to contracts?
My biggest contract mistake was twofold. First, not being clear on my terms and conditions in my own mind. And second, not enforcing them fairly when they were clear.
Tell us why it was a big mistake.
Well, I made the same mistake multiple times in my business, really. But if I go back to not being clear on my terms and conditions, it was a mistake because it led to a lot of confusion and resentment for me when a client then asked for something that I thought was clear or that I hadn't quite thought through, and then I had to deal with later. So can I give you an example of what I mean?
Yeah, that's the best way to learn. Give us examples. Go for it.
Basically, back in the early days of the Revolutionary Club, when I was just private coaching, I had my coaching contract pretty dialed in. And if you are a Build a Real Business student or you join the program, you'll actually get to see that private coaching contract as an example for you. And things were good. And one of the things that I did in that contract was, I coached in packages. So it was usually 10 sessions. And the client usually had 5 or 6 months, depending on when we were in the business, to finish and complete those 10 sessions. And I gave them that time so that they wouldn't stretch out their coaching endlessly and not make progress. I wanted to give them enough time to be able to take vacations or have to reschedule or to do what they needed to do, but also not enough time that it would drag on forever, right? I wanted them to get results. So that was all working well and things were going really, really well. And then, as this will happen to everyone listening as well, a client will ask you for something you didn't think about. So in this case, a client asked me for a contract extension. She had been kind of having some things going on in her life. It wasn't anything terrible, but she just wanted a little bit of extra time to really do the work. And so I thought that was reasonable. And I gave her that contract extension.
And how did you do that, Christy? Was it by email? Was it verbal? What?
We talked about it verbally, and then I just followed up with a real quick email. And I didn't think it through because what happened was, once she had that first contract extension, she then asked for another one because she didn't actually finish those sessions. And so the mistake that I made was I wasn't really clear what giving her a contract extension meant. And so the thing that I want everyone to think about is when you have a contract with someone, that's great. Everyone understands the rules and it makes everything fair and above board, which I love because one of my values is fairness. And I want everyone to understand what they're getting into. But with the extension, I didn't think about the fact that what she was asking me for was a favor. She had agreed to the contract. I had agreed to the contract. I had, delivered. I'd been available to coach her, all this other stuff. She, didn't take advantage. And then she wanted a favor. She wanted to extend. Now, I was happy to do it. And, as a coach, you got to make up your own mind as to what you want to do with this. But the mistake I made was I didn't put any additional terms and conditions around it. Now she was beyond the contract and she was asking for a favor, which means I could have put new rules in place. And so, when she asked for the second extension, I was actually frustrated at myself for really not thinking this through, a little bit at her, because I was like, it feels like now, because she asked for the second extension and it was clear she was just like, yeah, I just didn't have time. And it was, so she wasn't prioritizing coaching. And then I was mad because I wasn't able to help her, right? She was just really dragging out and she wasn't making the progress. And I felt like I was failing her a little bit. And so I wish in that first extension, I had said, you have 3 months. And if you don't use these sessions, they're complete, right? Mm-hmm. You cannot extend again. That would have been one option, right? Just to make sure she took it seriously and she understood that now the terms were changing. In my original contract, you could, if you didn't use sessions, you could get a refund for them. But in this one, I should have said, nope, that's it. That's, you're asking me for a favor. So now we're getting new terms and conditions. I could have also said, or if you don't use them, there's a penalty, or if you want the extension, you have to pay more. Or, there's a lot of different ways I could have addressed this. But by giving her no terms and conditions at all, just the okay, I ended up in a bad situation because here was a client who was just dragging out coaching. Again, she fully admitted she had some stuff going on, but it wasn't anything major. She just wasn't prioritizing the coaching. And I was letting her do that. So I wasn't holding her accountable, which means I wasn't really doing a great job with my contract to make sure that she got the results that she wanted. So that was on me, but it was, I looked back when she asked for that second extension and was like, oh my gosh, what a mistake. I can't believe I didn't see this coming.
And it's not just about her getting what she needs, because as her coach, telling her you've got 3 months and that's it might have spurred her into action. Maybe not. But it's also the anxiety that you had over making the new decisions. And now all over again, because I was your mastermind partner at the time, right? It was like, okay, the first time she asked, it was really, you had to be very thoughtful about whether you were going to do it and how you were going to do it and for how long and how you were going to communicate with her. You had to do it all over again. So it was a lose-lose for both of you.
Yeah, it caused me a lot of angst because I wanted to do right by her, but I also wanted to be fair to my other clients. And I also just wanted to make sure she got results. So I didn't want to extend coaching indefinitely under the past terms, right?
Yeah. So it was a big mistake because it created the angst, which is really important for coaches, because coaching takes a lot of energy, right? Mm-hmm. Takes us a lot of energy just to deliver the coaching. Forget all the business pieces of it. And so you don't want to add to that emotional energy that you have to expend when you have to rethink all of this and worry about it and try to make decisions, right? So what happened as a result, though?
So there is a positive and negative. The positive is, of course, when a client asks you something you haven't thought of and you give it to them and they interpret it in a different way than you expect, right? Like I expected her to use those sessions and she didn't. It makes you add better rules, right? It makes you think it through. And very few of my clients, private clients, ever asked to extend. And I, was very careful about who I chose to work with and careful about making sure I gave them the support that they needed and reminded them about the sessions. But it made me think through this in the future. So, I think I had one more client ask to extend and I was like, of course. And here are the new rules. Like these are the new terms that apply to this extension. And I was very, very clear. In my case, I chose to say that we will be done. Like you can use these sessions or not, but regardless, on this date, coaching is complete and there are no refunds at this stage, and et cetera, et cetera. So that was what worked for me. Again, you're more than welcome to figure out what works for you. But that client used those sessions and she got better results because of it. So that was really helpful. And it put me on a trajectory of being much more clear and trying to be much more thoughtful, especially when I started to switch into group programs and online programs. So you're not signing a contract, your people are agreeing to terms and conditions, right? Because you're now doing things at scale and it's a little bit different. But of course that led to another mistake.
Yeah. So I was going to ask you said there were two. So let's get into that. Let's dig in.
So the mistake for me initially is when my business really started to rapidly scale. And now I was onboarding, 100 new students, 200 new students in short periods of time. Obviously, again, they weren't signing contracts. These were for online programs and products or group programs. So I was writing extremely clear terms and conditions about, what is their refund policy, et cetera, et cetera. All of my programs have a refund policy usually. Very rarely do we not offer one, but occasionally that's the case. But most of them have refund policies. And so I tried to really think through and lay it out and make sure that we're very clear on the enrollment page. Here's the policy. You have to agree to it at checkout so people are very aware. But then, of course, what happens is you get some questions. Now, we don't get a lot of refunds. So I want to make that clear because we work really hard to qualify our students ahead of time and make sure that they understand what they're getting into. But once you start operating at scale, and even if you're not, sometimes somewhere someone's going to request a refund. And what that means is that you've made it. Congratulations. You're like a real business. Like that happens, of course. Like, welcome to the club.
Good approach.
But what happened was people would, of course, they would request something. Then sometimes it wasn't a refund, but it was some change in the terms and conditions. And in the beginning, I took those requests. I mean, I agonized over them because now I've got hundreds of people in programs. And, it's been growing and growing and growing. Now I have thousands of people in programs. So when someone asks for a change, what that means to me is it's not fair to everyone else. Right. And so like I've put these terms and conditions in, we've both agreed to them. Now I want to think about not just the person asking, but everyone else in the community who is not asking, right? Who's abiding by these terms and conditions. But in the beginning, and I'm getting really long-winded on this, I realized I agonized over it. So when someone asked, maybe they asked for a refund, or maybe they just asked for a change, like could they extend something or do something different or get an extra session because they missed a bonus session or could, whatever it was. I would sit with it and I'd talk to you, Bobby, about it.
Yeah.
And I'd spend hours thinking about it. And it really knocked me off my coaching game because I really wanted to do right by them. Of course, I wanted to support them, but I also wanted to do right by the rest of my community. And the mistake I made was I didn't have criteria and I didn't enforce it just across the board. Like criteria as to what to do when people asked. Like we obviously had agreed to terms and conditions, but I just sometimes was trying to work with all of these individuals. And what I've discovered is that, there's some people who legitimately have a problem and we want to be able to help them. And there's some people who are just testing the waters to see what they can get. That maybe they tell you a story, but you can kind of tell it's, their story changes, right? But it took a lot of time and energy, a lot of negative time and energy for me because I was worried, am I doing the right thing? If I do this for this person, does it mean I have to do it for everyone else? What does that mean? Should I change my terms? And I was just wasting hours. Again, not a lot of these requests, but they were just really derailing me when they did come in. And so I decided I had to get really strict and apply our terms and conditions across the board. And, you're going to get people who don't read and who don't pay attention, and they're very unhappy when they discover what they signed up for. And, what I say to that is it sucks. It sucks to say no to people sometimes when they write in and ask for stuff, but also it's not good for me or the team or for the whole community for me having to every time think about someone's individual situation because people are always going to ask you for different stuff. Always. It's not always the same request. To have to think about, if I give this person this, what does that mean for everyone else? And what does that mean for the rules? And to go through that exercise each time is exhausting and it's draining and it's not good. And when you start to operate at the scale that I operate at, it's just, you just don't want to put your time or energy or your team's time and energy into kind of doing this. Even again, if it's not that often, it still happens often enough that you got to think about it. Yeah. And so I thought it was just negative energy for me, especially. Every now and again, you get a jerk. You tell them, hey, you agreed to this. Here's all the information you need. And they're like, well, I don't care. I still want, XYZ. And you're kind of like, wait, what?
Yeah. And I want to point out what dig a little bit more into what you just said. You don't just say no. You say, you agree to the terms. I'm going to repeat what the terms are. And you always give them additional, personalized direction. Like if you go here, that'll help you with this. If you go back to mindset, that's what it is in a lot of ways. If you go back to this module, it'll really help you get jump started again. You always, you never just say, no, those are the terms, too bad, so sad. It's, yeah, those are the terms, and I'm going to hold you to that in integrity. Like you talk about, you really value fairness, and fairness is you both agreed to the terms, but you always give that little extra to give them the push they need or to really explain to them why it's of value to them to keep going. It's not just hell no and see you later. And sometimes there's the people that just came back to you over and over again. And looking back at your first mistake you talked about, really pay attention to the content of your terms and conditions. Make sure they're really clear. Learn from every time somebody asks you something that isn't clear to them. And then really, I think it's whether you have, 2 clients or 2,000, stick to it and be in integrity and also show that you really care about every individual client because you do.
Yeah. And so one of the good things that came from the second mistake, even though it's really hard for me to enforce those boundaries sometimes, is we wrote scripts and we really sat down and we thought, what is the most caring way we can, inform people of, what the rules are and remind them, and what is the most caring way we can continue to support them without having to reinvent the wheel every time, without having to get into some of this energy or back and forth with folks. So it forced us to kind of sit down and come up with some scripts, which my team uses when someone emails in with asking for a change in the terms. Again, whatever that might be. Maybe they got a bonus call and they want to, expired and they still want it, or, they want to change something or they want to change access, whatever it might be. And so we send the script, and, when they respond, depending on how they do, we send another script and it keeps things energetically positive for us. And, sometimes they don't love the answer, but, hopefully they understand that they decided to sign up and that the rules were clear. And, they have a part to play in it. And it just, it feels like we're just being in integrity with everyone that way. And also we've now got, a good system in place. We've got this good script system to help us try to do our best by our clients, even if their view is a little bit different than ours.
Yeah. And let's share just briefly about what I see as, for lack of a better term, like your strongest rule or your strongest term about refunds. And that is, do the work. And if it doesn't work for you, if you don't get results, then you can get a refund. And so what it talks about very clearly is that means show us that you did the work, that you went through and did the exercises, that you tried to do some sales calls. That you actually made the effort using the amazing content that you provide in Barb. Truly, it's life-changing for people. So show us that you applied it. And hey, if it's not right for you and it didn't work for you and you didn't get what you need, you gladly refund the money, right? But what you get is people asking, for all different personal reasons why they couldn't do the work.
Yes, exactly. Or sometimes they're like, well, it's been a year and a half. Can I get the refund now? I'm like, well, no, it's 6 months. We give you plenty of time, but at some point you got to do it. But yeah, not all of my programs has this specific refund policy. But if anyone's interested, this one is for Build a Real Business. And we have it because building a business is hard. And we want to make sure that you really do the work. If you just show up and you do a module or you don't engage or ask questions, you might not get the results that you want. You're probably not. And so I'm not going to just refund you for the fact that you signed up for a program and didn't participate. Right.
Because you delivered.
I always deliver. We always have resources. If you choose not to take advantage of the resources, or if your clients choose not to take advantage of your resources as a coach, that's their decision. And it's not necessarily on you then to just refund them because they decided that they weren't going to do the work,
Yeah.
And so we try to make that super clear up front in all of our enrollment materials, that we're not just going to be like, oh yeah, just sign up. And if it doesn't work, here's a refund. No, it's like, sign up and here's some things to know, because it's not magic, and you guys listening, your refund policy for your programs might be different. I have a couple of different refund policies depending on the program, but because we put a lot of live support and a lot of super deep content support in this program, we expect people to do the work in order to qualify for the refund, And I think that's a pretty fair thing to do. You can take the whole program, do all the work. And if you don't get the results, after that, then of course we'll refund you. Right. Yeah. But we know the program works.
That scenario doesn't really happen.
Yeah. I think we've had 3 refunds that we've approved in 5 years. So very, very, very few. And I would say all of the people who refunded, it was clear they didn't really ask for help, but they did show proof that they did the work. So we were like, we're not going to argue with you. It's a shame you didn't ask, come to office hours or ask for help, but okay.
The other thing that you mentioned earlier that I want to really highlight is that putting your rules right up front. Putting that right up front, you have it on the enrollment page. You have them click off I agree to this. And granted, most of us don't read those details, but you put it out there, and it's not 40 pages of copy for them to read, but just how important it is to be really, really clear up front. And one reason I think you do it, Christy, is because you want to qualify people who are really committed and interested in learning how to be a really successful coach. You don't want somebody just kind of popping in and trying it out, and and then giving up.
This particular refund policy, and so think about this, you guys, as you build your contracts. This particular one is really useful in turning away the people who aren't serious. So we've probably gotten fewer enrollments, but we have also kept our refund policy, like the people asking. I mean, we get very, very few requests in general. We've approved even fewer of them because they know that they got to commit and do the work to the best of our ability. Like I expect, like my contract with you is that you need to read what you're getting into. Like that's what I expect of people. But mine is I need to make sure it's publicly available. Like it needs to be on the enrollment page and not just not just stuck away in the terms and conditions. But on the enrollment page and, in emails, I don't outline everything, but I say, you do need to do all the work. You do need to commit, so I make it clear that it's not just refund for no reason. Right.
Yeah. Which can be, that's the kind of decision as a new coach that I found scary to make it happens with pricing, it happens with contracts, it happens sometimes with content. The idea of like, if I do it this way, I may get fewer enrollments, right? Like if I price it this way, I might get less people, but will I get more qualified people? Or if I say in the contract this, will I scare away some people? And the bottom line is when you're really clear about your objectives and you're really clear about your ideal client, and who's going to work best with you and really get the most out of it. And also be like an active participant. Then sometimes you have to make those choices and they're kind of scary. Wait, but maybe I can make $2,000 more. Or maybe I can make $20,000 more. But when you're making contract decisions, meaning, fundamentally how you can run your business is what shows up in your contract in a lot of ways. You have to think about just day-to-day business and what works best for both the client and yourself.
Yes, both of you. And I will also say that I think a lot of this needs to sometimes be lived. Like you can hear us talking about it and be like, that makes sense, and still have that FOMO. I know I got a lot more clear on my contracts and terms and conditions over time for the FOMO reason, right? Because I wanted people to sign up. But what you quickly learn is that like clients who don't understand what they're getting into are not good clients. And they're such a drain. And it's so much better to have, usually when you raise your prices, you lose some clients, but because your prices are more expensive, you actually don't necessarily lose any money. You might make more, you get better clients. Same is true of contracts. When you qualify your clients a little bit more and make your refund policy clear up front and people know what they're getting into, then they're much more likely to have success and you get better results. You have a better time. They have a better time. And so it's like a big wash. You might lose a couple people, but you more than make up for it with the people who are in your program. But I know it's hard. It's easier for me to say this. And a lot of coaches, I think, need to just go through like that FOMO and then realize the mistakes, and then they understand, and then they all of a sudden have really great contracts in place.
And look, for $47 or $97 products that are like, like for instance, in Barb, you deliver over months. I mean, there's so much content and everything builds on itself. But for like a $97 or $47 product, that's a one-time only that delivers, a few videos and some really great workbooks, that kind of thing. Sometimes then you're going to be, like, hey, if after 30 days it doesn't work for you, we'll give you your money back. It may be totally different.
Yeah. And I have programs like that where it's a 30-day and no questions asked. And then I have one or two programs that, at checkout, it says there are no refunds. Yeah. And when you click that box, like we actually put it right by the box. We don't do the link to terms and conditions. We want to be so clear. Like, hey, when you purchase this, you understand there are no refunds for any reason. Yeah. That doesn't mean, by the way, people will try to refund sometimes with that. Because sometimes it's not because they don't like the product. Sometimes people just realize they need the money. Or they want the money back. They like the product.
It's buyer's remorse.
Not even buyer's remorse, but like, oh, something came up and I'd rather spend the money on this. I've seen and heard of that many times, like not in my business, but you can kind of tell, right? Like someone comes in, oh, I'm getting married. Can I get a refund? And it's like, what?
Now, if I get that in my business, that's a little different, right? For doing dating coaching, I have, I think twice in a dozen years, I've had someone sign up for private coaching, and maybe there's like a 30-day lag. And then I get the, oh my God, I met the man of my dreams. I want to cancel. And my response is, hey, by the way, you need me more than ever.
Nice. I like that. And right? What do they say to that when that's your response?
We generally stick to the decision to work together because, like in my business, These are women who've not been in a good relationship, unfortunately, like I was not until I was 47. And the skills that you need in dating are different than the skills that you need to maintain a really healthy relationship. So it's like, hey, girlfriend, don't cancel this. If you want to, you can. Like I said, it's only happened a couple times, but let's just tweak it a little bit and what I'm going to deliver to you and how I'm going to help you and how I'm going to partner with you.
That's a good tip, Bobby. And actually, speaking of tips, is it time for our lightning round?
I think it's time. Would you like to give the first lightning round tip?
I will, but first let me introduce it. All right, so we're about to start the lightning round, which is the sweet part of every interview where we give you concrete tips to help you immediately put into action in your business. And because it's sweet, it's sponsored by chocolate. And today it's Haagen-Dazs ice cream because, oh my gosh, I don't know where it came from, but some showed up in my freezer. And then it showed up in my face. So Haagen-Dazs chocolate ice cream. Sometimes it's just old school Haagen-Dazs, old school creamy, goodness. Chocolate obviously being the flavor because there are no other flavors. And so I'm just going to recommend that. And if you are someone who just wants more tips and helps on coaching, please go to coachpony.com and sign up for our free guide. And when you do, you will get access to Couch School, which is business training you can do from your couch. It's free email training. So if you go to coachpony.com and sign up for the free guide, you'll automatically get enrolled in Couch School, and you'll get some really in-depth deep dives on the future of life coaching and how to make money as a coach and all sorts of other good stuff. So with that, Bobby, I will do the first tip. Tip number 1, be upfront as you can be at all times. So know your contract, know your terms and conditions, and try to be as clear as you can be. Bobby, tip number 2.
Just acknowledge that you can't predict everything that's going to happen and every request you're going to get. So give yourself permission to make a mistake and then go ahead and learn from it, update your terms when you need to.
Yes. Yes. You truly, no matter how much you think through this, you will come up with weird situations. And it's okay to learn and update. As you grow your business and change your offers and evolve, you will change your rules and your boundaries will change. And so your contract will change or your terms and conditions will change. And that's also okay. Things that used to be okay with you a year into your business might not be okay with you 5 years into your business. And that's fine. That's the conclusion of our lightning round. I hope that no matter what you take away, that it's okay to make mistakes, even in contracts. You will learn from them and you will be okay. You will survive. Bobby, should we go ahead and wrap up in our awesome close?
Let's do it. 3, 2, 1.
Remember, you can't be, we can never get this right. Okay.
Remember,
you can't be great. Go ahead, Bobby.
Without making mistakes.
Oh, as always, I like one. We walk the talk, you guys. We walk the talk.
Just modeling what we're teaching.
All right, awesome. We will see you in the next episode, so please subscribe.
Adios.
Thanks so much for listening. If you loved this episode, hit subscribe and leave us a review. We appreciate you. And if you know another coach who could really benefit or is struggling, feel free to share the podcast with them. Finally, if you want to avoid more mistakes in your business, then please, for the love of chocolate, join Build a Real Business, our comprehensive program to help you find happy paying coaching clients. It's the step-by-step training and real live support that you need to build a coaching business that you absolutely love. You can find more information over at coachpony.com/barb-invite. That's coachpony.com/barb-invite. I can't wait to help you, and I'll see you next time. Saddle up, let's ride.